Here's the gist of Arizona Sunshine.
Fuck! Run, 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 run! I can't run! Oh, okay. Okay, we can deal. I got a grenade left. This has ammo in it. Cool. Fuck, no it doesn't. You don't have ammo either. Do you? No. But I have a grenade. Make this count. Please. Yes! We good.
That was pretty crazy.
This is a zombie shooter developed and published by Vertigo Games, an apt name given that this is a virtual reality exclusive title. As such, this may become a difficult game to explain to the vast majority of you. See, as far as VR goes, controls either work or they don't. Your movements in real life directly correspond to those in game, namely where you're looking, pointing, and standing. So assuming you have a powerful enough rig to handle virtual reality and your base stations are properly configured, the game plays deceptively simply, at least on PC. There's a PS4 version too, but I don't personally own a PS4, and it seems to not be a great experience judging by the reviews. As such, I'll be focusing exclusively on the PC version, in which 2 game modes are available to you by default. Campaign, which takes you through the story of a man surviving the zombie apocalypse in beautiful Arizona, as you progress through abandoned valleys, mineshafts, and amusement parks, scrounging for weapons and supplies in search of rescue, all the while being spouted generic one-liners and quips by the protagonist.
Asshole! Asshole! Asshole!
Is this gonna persist for a while? Because I'll just mute the game, that's fine.
Time passes as you progress through the game's various areas, meaning it'll often get too dark to see clearly, although not quite as pitch black as the footage would imply when playing with a headset on yourself. A torch is provided to help slice through the shadows, but at the cost of occupying a free hand that could otherwise be wielding a firearm. Still, it makes for some great natural feeling jump scares.
Hey, give me that. I'm gonna need as much of this What? Ah! Fuck! Get out of here!
I'd say the campaign is around 5 hours long, being generous. Not an extravagant venture, but plenty difficult and varied to stay interesting throughout. I wouldn't play it for the plot or anything, as it's cliched beyond belief, but the gameplay and level design are paced and suited well for those familiar with VR. You can also find cosmetics strewn about, which can be donned to stand out in multiplayer via the co-op campaign, or Horde mode, where you and up to 3 other players can team up to fight back waves of zombies, progressively being granted bigger and better weapons. There's also a third game mode available via the incredibly cheap Deadman DLC, being a miniature campaign taking place in a military base that's being actively overrun by zombies. Said zombies appearing throughout the game in small clusters or massive event-based hordes are, even for zombies, a bit too zombie-like, by which I mean they all simply stumble towards you slowly with basic and often dysfunctional AI, often clipping through walls or taking weird roundabout routes to reach you. Some of them will opt to sprint in a straight line at you, thus becoming priority targets, while others are equipped with armor or helmets. If a zombie is shot repeatedly in the legs or chest, they may fall to the ground only to become undead, crawling towards you to chew on your feet. All zombies will take several shots from low caliber weapons to fall, or a single well-placed shot between the eyes. Speaking of which, guns are picked up by pressing the grips of your controller, then become attached to your hand unless you holster them to your belt. Firing is a simple matter of, well, pulling the trigger, although I wear glasses, have the original model of HTC Vive, and will say, less than perfect depth perception. So trying to aim directly in the center of my view, where my vision becomes vaguely obscured, proves more challenging than this two-dimensional footage would attest. This is by no means a problem exclusive to this game, mind you, and should not be held against it. VR is still in its early stages after all. Despite that, I feel the guns still require precision greater than expected of most VR shooters. It's not quite as simple as just pointing the controller at targets, as while it may appear you've aimed correctly, the angle at which you hold the controller may point the barrel ever so slightly askew. As such, great care has to be taken to zero in on targets with the iron sights, to ensure the barrel is aligned with your vision. It may just be me, but I found that other VR shooters weren't quite as precise in this regard. In stark contrast, reloading weapons falls comfortably between simplicity and realism. You have to eject the magazine manually, but instead of fumbling with inserting a new one a la similar titles, you simply swipe the firearm across your chest. Ammo conservation is key, regardless of the game mode you're playing. Pistol rounds rounds, SMG/rifle rounds, shotgun shells, and grenade shells are the 4 types of ammunition you'll come across, all being holstered into discrete, finite caches on your belt. Magazines that were not entirely depleted upon ejection can be picked back up to reuse, encouraging you to reload frequently as to always have a full clip ready. You may occasionally stumble across grenades, which have to be physically thrown in real life, a problem for those of us in small offices.
Hang on, let's do something cool. Wait, like, where's the boundaries of my room? Perfect. Okay, here we go. Fuck! My room isn't big enough to be cool.
All weapons can be operated with one hand, but those with foregrips may be stabilized by holding it with your other hand. In fact, a relatively recent update added a slew of weapons designed around two-handed operation, such as assault rifles and a shotgun. You can choose whether or not one-handed or two-handed centric weapons will be provided to you before playing any game mode. However, at least for the campaign, you can't opt to have both variations of weapons spawn, which is a bit of a shame in my eyes. I would like to have pistols and assault rifles at the same time, not have to choose between them. And there's also no melee weapons to speak of. Certain props can technically be thrown at zombies to deal minor damage, but I'd hardly call it practical.
Yes! Okay. Now let's go for the dunk. This one's my dunk hand. NBA 2K16. Alright, moving on.
So if you find yourself surrounded and out of rounds, you've pretty much foobarred yourself. Zombies will simply stand point blank and strike you over and over until your health is depleted. Your HP will passively restore itself up to 50% as long as you aren't being attacked, but beyond that you'll have to find healing items, namely hamburgers, to scarf down. You can see how much HP you have as well as the menu on your wristwatch. Unfortunately, no settings can be changed in game, not even movement type. So if the game starts struggling or you want to change your control scheme, you'll have to return to the main menu, which in and of itself is a separate location, giving you a safe place to calibrate your controls, test the game's less than realistic physics, or change graphics or movement type. Teleport locomotion is enabled by default, which for the uninitiated is simply pointing at an area nearby and teleporting over to it, which helps to curb nausea induced by virtual reality. However, if you think you can handle it, you can swap to smooth locomotion, allowing you to seamlessly walk around with a trackpad. Although this particular form of movement, in my experience, tends to have issues, namely with stairwells.
Hang on. Oh my god, I'm trying to inch my way down this fucking stairs. I'm so stuck. Alright, here. Yeah, okay. Here. We're here. We're clipping through the wall. We're trying desperately to get out. Game isn't having it. Oh god.
Overall, this game's general glitchiness, mediocre AI, cheesy voice acting, and overall clunkiness is offset by the variety in weaponry, aesthetically pleasing setting, and it may sound silly, but simply being a functional, multiplayer VR title. Virtual reality is still in its infancy, so most titles available for it aren't held to the same expectations as standard releases. Thus, seeing a rough around the edges but still fun and functional VR title is a less common sight than one would desire. Combined with the $40 price point, relatively cheap for VR considering the amount of content provided, I'd consider Arizona Sunshine one of the best VR shooters on the market. If it's your first time trying virtual reality, I'd recommend getting your sea legs first in a less fast-paced title. But for those who've got the hang of things, I'd recommend Arizona Sunshine to anyone who owns an HTC Vive or Oculus Rift.
Hang on, let me see if I can do a revolver ocelot spin.
Thanks for watching, and take it easy.